Hello, and welcome to episode 138 of Prose. This week, play cards with 3 dangerous women, and Judge Cain Reborn. Though you are hearing this, dear listeners, well into August, my recording schedule is such that I am putting this to digital audio for the ages in June. Since last I recorded, I have moved apartments, moved boroughs, and utterly gutted my tiny studio space. Thank you all for your kind words and patience amid what has been a rather chaotic time. Your amazing understanding aside, as always, please do go check out prosepodcast.com while you're listening. There you can engage with Prose in myriad ways. Most importantly, please do try to rate, review, like, and share Prose through all podcast apps and services, as well as social media. That really does help so very much, and I would love to spread the show further. Thanks for listening. Let's get to those tales, shall we? This week we have Suicide King and Cain of the New World. Enjoy. Suicide King, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. By no means would I ever consider myself a statistician, nor a mathematician. And without those skill sets, I am the most unlikely card counter you could imagine. But that doesn't mean I wasn't trying as I played the card game of my life. The 3 sisters were good. Damn good. Every person to walk this earth that wanted to make a deal of a lifetime either played against these sisters, or they looked farther into the bowels of the earth and looked to Lucifer and his kin to make some double-edged bargains. The latter being what it was, I decided to take my chances with poker. Well, their version of poker anyway. The sisters loved to appear to different people in different guises. Old to some, young to others. Racked with pustules and caked in filth to one, pristine goddesses come down from the heavens to others. They like to keep would-be players on their toes. For me, they looked like 30-something-year-old women who'd taken pretty damn good care of themselves. They turned heads, that's for sure. One redhead, one brunette, one blonde. All buxom, dressed in low-cut, tight-fitting forest green and sky blue and fire engine red cocktail dresses, respectively. Their faces were identical, though, and their all-pupil eyes were disturbing. That was a bit distracting as I did my best to keep my mind on the game at hand. I'd studied enough to know a statistic or two, a probability or two. I knew that my likelihood of pulling a one-eyed jack, for example, was 1 in 26. Now, there were 2 in the deck. What did that mean for my probability? Shit if I knew. Again, I'm absolute pants at math. That being said, I had done enough front-end research to know that the sisters were gaga for declaring one-eyed jacks wild. That's why I had the limited understanding of the probabilities of pulling one that I had. I'm not exactly sure why they loved those two cards so much, but word on the street was they just did. So as we rifled through each successive hand, I tried to keep my eyes peeled for the Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Spades. For some reason, I associated those two jacks with the sexier of the two suits. I'm not sure what I have against diamonds, but clubs are just a touch lame. Just one of those strange mechanisms of an already strange brain, I guess. Hand after hand, the jacks did not come up. Hand after hand, the sisters declared them the only wild cards in the deck. We played odd variations of Omaha Hold'em, Hemmerbukayin, tossers, deuce to 7, triple draw, 5-card draw, Raz, 7-card stud, Billabong, Coon, squaw poker, and God knows how many other variants I couldn't pronounce or fully understand. Their favorite seemed to be 5-card draw, though, which was good. I'd seen that on TV and attempted to play it with family and friends enough over the years that when I decided to learn a little bit of strategy for this particularly important game, I wasn't completely lost. I mean, this wasn't the first time playing with these ladies either. I had been at this table at least 6 other times in my 38 years. I had lost every time, but losing does still allow for growth. Each of those 6 times, the winning opponent changed. The redhead, the blonde, the brunette, the redhead, the blonde, the brunette. If there was any sort of consistency to this pattern I was perceiving, that auburn-haired girl with 2 black eyes and shock red lipstick that was sipping on a filthy vodka martini would be the one to watch out for. But yeah, this hand was looking like I was set. I had drawn the Jack of Hearts. I had the King of Hearts. In addition to those 2 auspicious faces, I had a 10 of clubs, 9 of spades, and a 2 of diamonds. This is the best place I'd ever been with these 3. The redhead motioned for time to swap out cards and get down to business. The blonde took 3 cards. The brunette also took 3. They looked to me. I asked for 1 card. The redhead took 1. It looked like it was down to us indeed. My jack stared at me with his one eye. My king looked at me warningly, the knife through his neck, an accusation, a threat. Prophecy? I turned my new card over. Another eye staring back up at me. Just one. This one black. Just like those ladies. There he was, the Jack of Spades, the second wild card. Good God, or would it be gods? I had a straight. I had a damn dirty straight. I did my best to etch my face in stone. I didn't want to tighten my lips. I didn't want the barest tick of my eye. These women were assassins in every sense of the word, and my life and soul were hanging in the balance. The King of Hearts continued to look at me plaintively. Maybe he was rooting for me after all. Maybe he knew something I didn't. Why did he seem so sad? I guess I'd be sad if I had steel through my carotid too. Maybe I would have steel through my carotid here in 10 minutes when this was all over. Bets went down. No money was on the table, not a dime. My grandpa's cancer against my life. I win, the cancer dies, never to return. I lose, well, that was it for me. I'd either draw my last breath after my play, or more likely, these girls would keep me alive to do their will, whatever that was. As inscrutable as they were, though, I couldn't help but think that whatever that will was, it wouldn't be good or wholesome or anything close to comfortable. I'd lost cars. I'd lost jobs. I'd lost fiancés. Yes, plural. I'd lost my damn hairline. These women had been taking from me for a good long while. It was time for me to come out on top. It was time for my granddad to come out on top. Auburn Top motioned for Blondie that it was time to lay down. 2 pair, all numeric, nothing. The chestnut-haired beaut went next. 3 of a kind, ace high. There was the ace of hearts. She beat her fair-haired sister. Our dealer looked at me. Both of the other sisters looked superior despite their less than breathtaking hands. My face was still stone. I laid my cards down one at a time, low to high, to punctuate my hand. 9 of spades. 10 of clubs, jack of hearts, wild. Jack of spades, wild. King of hearts, the suicide king. A straight, you evil harpies. I got me a straight. I got Granddaddy a straight. The 2 sisters looked to their third. She too was stony-faced. She laid down an 8, a 9, a 10, a jack, a queen. I had won. I had won. The blonde hissed like a cat. The brunette bore her teeth at me. The redhead met my eyes. That eye contact made my head swim. My reality tilted. I saw wives, children. I saw deaths and lives. I saw a million billion possible paths that I would be proffered throughout my life. Some led to happiness, some led to banality. Some led to death, some led to lasting fortune and fame. As these avenues sped by at light speed, I tried to grasp at some of them, take mental snapshots to attempt to get a little foreknowledge. Then blam, I jolted into a wall of sorts. Just a picture of my grandfather. Him smiling, him hearing that chemo had worked, remission, best healing they'd ever seen. I lurched back into my own reality. I leaned to the side of the table and vomited. As I leaned back up, the redhead still burned into me with her unwavering gaze. She spoke, but her voice was one with those of her sisters flanking her, and otherworldly.
Until next time, cursed one. Well played today, my suicide king.
She leaned forward, kissed my cheek. The kiss was both chaste and lusty, sisterly and loverly. Then, with a clap of thunder that shook me and hurt my chest, they were gone. The rest of the casino was unperturbed. That exchange had been just between the 4 of us, it would seem. I stood and put on my clearance sale JCPenney blazer. My knees were still weak and my stomach still churning. Cursed one? Me? Being the suicide king? That was troubling. Hell, them being so confident they would see me again was full-on horrifying. Oh well. Forget those hags for now. For now, I was going to see my granddad. It was time to celebrate. I made my way toward the exit. Thank you for listening to Suicide King, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. Please do stick around for our second story this week, a little bit of historical fiction for all you New England scholars and lovers of the story of the Mayflower and Plymouth colony. Cain of the New World, an original short story by Jared I. McGee.
My dearest Ophelia, how time conspires to make us even farther apart than the ocean. It has been some time since I came across on the Anne, since Miles and I were wed, since we began our life in this new Canaan, this new Eden, so very full of milk and honey. But I fear I have written too much in efforts to try to woo you, to bring you over to this land. And in truth, this new land is not without its snares for the unwary. What would a new Eden or new Canaan be without a new Cain to spoil the purity of the place for the rest of us after all? I am sure you have not heard back in England, as the news isn't anything that would make a splash back home, even half a decade after the happenings. But here, where everything is new, everything a first, this killing, this first shedding of English blood by another Englishman, well, that is something for the history books. That is something to be remembered, to be studied, to be preyed upon. I am only as invested as I am, though, because Miles had such a bad run-in with our Cain years back. That Lincolnshire-born devil, actually named John Billington, was charged and sentenced for disobeying Miles amid the voyage. The whole company met and said he was guilty before God and the people for contempt of the captain's lawful command with opprobrious speeches. But those fools, my dear husband included, let him off with a warning. Can you imagine? Rather than being bound neck to heel, as was the prescribed punishment, they let him walk free, after he bowed and scraped and whined about this being his first true offense against the company. Fools, I tell you again, my dearest Ophelia. Fools. On the ship itself, not too terribly long before this incident, and just after they had arrived in Plymouth, Billington's son almost blew the resolute Mayflower to detritus and driftwood. The wool-headed boy made some squibs and shot off a musket indoors. And what next to? What next to, you may ask? A full, open cask of gunpowder. The young Billington let flame and cinder rain down upon that open barrel of fire and death. He was excused as well, more for ignorance and idiocy than anything nefarious, apparently, but if this tale bears out anything, it's that the Billington family is rotten to the core and was sent to test the faith and resolve of the company and our ability to effect God's own way in this new land. I can say this with confidence because Billington's other son, also named John, actually caused a stir right after the elder Billington's conviction. That boy barely 2 months after his father's lunacy and disrespect, decided to go on a bit of a jaunt in the wilderness and was taken by a local tribe. The company, according to Miles, had to send men in force to retrieve the younger John. I'm telling you, the family is rotten. We also had a failed revolt that Billington was likely a part of. He and his ilk were chafing under having to live a righteous Christian life. They wanted to undermine the church and the company and the compact. But again, those in charge saw fit to dole out mercy. Miles at this time warned that this type of indulgence would invariably reap vengeance and violence. No one listened to my dear husband, though. Have you heard of the somewhat well-to-do William Bradford from the company? A well-respected man, and a true man of God to be sure, one who arrived later. He agreed with Miles and said time and again that Billington was a knave who lived a knavish life. So he would live, and so he would die in that manner. With 2 men of such great renown as my dear husband and the indelible Mr. Bradford, one would think that the company might see their errors. But they did not. This, of course, was a failure most tragic. The tragedy was heaped upon the poor Newcomen family. Because of the mercy of the company, the Newcomens lost their husband and father, and over what? The vanity and recalcitrance of men. John Billington the Elder killed John Newcomen, shot him dead. Newcomen was out hunting, hoping to kill a deer to take back to his beloved family, to provide for them as a husband and father should. Billington hid and actually laid in wait to ambush the poor man. Upon seeing Newcomen, Billington fired from his blind, striking his target true. Newcomen was hit in the shoulder and did not stand a chance. He died shortly thereafter. The quarrel between the two was apparently rancorous and quite aged. But no one, not even the wives or progeny of the 2 men, can say precisely what started it, or what fanned those flames all these years. The senselessness of men, Ophelia, may we never be infected by it. According to all accounts and his own testimony, Billington thought he would be spared from any great punishment once again. We are desperate for hands and heads that can help us prevail in our task of taming this land, after all. This time, though, Billington did not escape the company's justice. Miles isn't one to revel in death and mayhem, but I tell you, he was honestly somewhat chipper at the sentence. He looked forward to the execution, it seemed to me. Unlike Miles, the rest of the jurors and adjudicators were quite sad. They hated to see this new paradise sullied and defiled by having to execute one of our own brethren. But some of our newer company, the wonderful Mr. Winthrop being chief among them, reminded us all that the Bible tells us that a man of blood must atone for his sins in order to purge the land of taint. So, just as the ground was threatening to cool and harden as autumn pushed forward to winter, the company had the man hanged. Unanimous verdict, unanimous punishment, all in agreement. The first murderer met the devil for his sins. no Awan to love him and bear him more fruit in the land of Nod. No. Justice met the righteous hand of God protecting his own. Amen. You would think that with the chief knave dead, the story would end. But no. His sons continued to be problems for the colony. His wife, though, was a true terror. Like her dead husband, she too was sentenced to the Plymouth court for her own crimes. I myself saw her secured in the stocks and whipped for her egregious and erroneous slander of Miles's own friend John Doane just a few years later. After all the trouble her Billington men caused, she herself just had to cause some mayhem to be part of the tradition, I guess. These years later, in the wake of it all, it remains nonsensical to me. Billington cursed his line and his life just as Cain did his. The Billingtons may not have been cursed to wander the land, but they were certainly outcasts and fugitives of a sort. The wife is wasting away after her own trials. One son is dead. One son is living but unhappy. I can only imagine that his grandchildren will continue to bear the weight of his killing and spoiling our garden. My letter runs long, dearest Ophelia, and it has been all salaciousness, death, and dying. I shall write again with other news of Miles and the children with most haste. For now, I remain your friend and most beloved. May Christ keep you. Barbara Standish. Thank you for listening to Cain of the New World, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. That does it for Prose this week. All the sounds and music you've heard come from either YouTube's Free Music Audio Library or freesound.org, and they were all being used under CC 01.0 public domain dedication licenses. I do hope that you'll rejoin us in 2 weeks' time, as we will have another new episode then, and I have some surprises coming up in the near future. Until then, do love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life as it is. Stranger than fiction. Truly, thank you for listening.